Today on episode 71 of the 3-Point Blitz, former Cowboys Pro Bowler Trayvon Diggs now has a new home with the defending Super Bowl champs. Max Struess part of a 3-team trade involving the Nuggets and Clippers. Plus, the Cavs make a big move re-signing James Harden. All that and more today on episode 71 of the 3-Point Blitz. Good evening, folks. It is Monday, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we are back for another episode of the 3-Point Blitz. This time, folks, it is episode number 71. That's right. Big episode number 71, and we're glad to be here. And crazy to think we only got one more full week of August, as next Monday will be August 31st. The weather is bright and beautiful. It's not too hot, and it's the perfect day to do this show outside. So that's why we're outside for episode 71, folks. So without any further ado, we're going to dive right into it because we got a lot to talk about with NFL preseason, all that and more. So let's get right into it. First, we start off with the news. The Seattle Seahawks have signed former Cowboy Pro Bowler, former NFL season league leader in interceptions in the year 2021, Trayvon Diggs, to a one-year deal worth a little over $1 million to try to help with their secondary. Now, Diggs is a veteran. He has a respected name amongst defensive backs in the NFL. So he did have a few really good seasons in 2021 and 2022. What is up? What is up, Agent? It's Agent Warrior X, my co-host from Everything on the Table, stopping by in the chat. So thanks for tuning in, Agent. And Trayvon Diggs, he had a few really good years going early on. Then in 2023, in September, he had an season-ending ACL injury at the beginning of the year and never really got back to that same peak level. Even in 2025, he was let go at the beginning of December. He had a short stint with the Packers at the end of last season into the playoff game versus the Bears, and he got let go after their season ended. And now he's on a one-year veteran deal with the Seahawks to try to help their secondary. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. For Diggs, here's a guy who out his career has been known to be a playmaker, but he's also a guy, even going back to his peak with the Cowboys, has been known to get burnt repeatedly. And Trayvon Diggs has that history of getting burnt. And yes, it's so you don't know what you're going to get with him. Are you going to get the guy who once led the league in 11 interceptions, 2021, the guy at all-pro honors, back-to-back Pro Bowls, or are we going to get the guy who's known to give up big plays and give up touchdowns in Seattle? Yesterday on the Sunday morning podcast, we talked football talk with Bo. He said he's around the same tier as Tyreek Woolen, who will sometimes make you some plays but is inconsistent. And he feels even himself saying that he's basically Tyreek Woolen but cheaper, referring to Diggs at this point in his career. Which that may be possibly true or not, but I can see where the Seahawks are coming from. They do need some help with their secondary. And we know Tyreek Woolen signed with my team, the Philadelphia Eagles, for the year, so he's not available. They need some help, and they're bringing in Diggs. Hopefully, they're hoping he'll be the guy. I mean, the Seahawks still do have a pretty good team around them. They still fresh off a Super Bowl win. They have most of their key pieces, although they did lose Kenneth Walker. But Diggs, is he going to really help at this point? I mean, considering he's off a down year, I don't know how that's going to really work out. I mean, maybe with the Seahawks, maybe he's the right fit and he redeems himself. But to me, it's kind of like either 1 year prove it or just a 1 year fill a spot on the roster type deal. But we're going to have to see what Trayvon Diggs we get this year in Seattle. I mean, based off recent years, I don't know how well it's going to work. But then again, when there's Seattle Seahawks, you still have a strong roster. It's not going to be that huge and that significant, but we're going to have to wait and see. So I guess the Seahawks feel like they're confident enough in Trayvon Diggs that they can just utilize him and he'll succeed with the system they have. But we got to wait and see on that one. And speaking of moves, there actually was a trade that happened earlier today. I'm going to share this with you guys. It just happened a few hours ago before we went on. So here we go. You see in this trade right here, it's got Patriots are trading wide receiver Keishan Bolt to the Texans for Jalen Reed in a 2028 7th-round pick 2 years from now. At this point, it's more of just a roster swap type of deal. I guess we'll see how that plays out. I mean, the Texans are they're going all in on wide receivers this year. It's pretty obvious they want to make sure that they got wide receivers around CJ Stroud, which we'll talk about that more in a few minutes when I talk about the QB hot seat for all the projected starters for all 32 teams in a few minutes. Just got to talk about Premier League as well as our next episode of Everything on the Table when we come back. And there's just the deals finalizing it, but nevertheless though, yeah, so it's an interesting deal. So with Trayvon Diggs, we'll just have to wait and see how that plays out. But now let's talk about preseason week 3 a little bit. Some of the potential winners and losers from this week. We did see as far as some of the losers, will get that out the way early, were the Miami Dolphins. For a team that we already thought has low expectations entering the season, maybe on par or slightly better than the Jets expectation-wise, all of a sudden now you got that same team just getting, after a halfway decent performance against Washington week number 1, all of a sudden now they're coming in, they're getting obliterated by the Giants. Yeah, that's not a good look right there for the Dolphins. And Big C said it yesterday on the Sunday morning show. They're coming crashing down to reality, referring to the Dolphins. And I got to say that. But another team I got to say who's also looking like losers, the Atlanta Falcons. In a division that's wide open in the NFC South, where really last year you had a 3-way tiebreaker for first place between the Panthers, Bucks, and Falcons. Panthers won out. And then the Saints finished just behind them with 7 wins. You would think, okay, anybody could potentially be favorites entering the season because there was no huge superstar signing. This wasn't like the 2012 offseason where you had the 3-way tiebreaker the previous year. The Broncos won it, and then all of a sudden they got Peyton Manning and they became the favorites. It's not like that here. This is a situation in NFC South. None of the 4 teams really made a huge, significant game-changing upgrade. So there's still about a chance any team could win that division. And for the Falcons in 2 preseason games to look terrible, and Tua to look like hot garbage, and for people to give up hope on the Falcons before the season starts and what should be an open division, that's a huge L right there for them. Another L I got to say is the Cleveland Browns QB room, which we're going to talk about that in a minute. You're stuck between Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, and Deshaun Watson as your 3 starting quarterbacks. That's insane. That's your team right there. We're going to get more to Deshaun Watson in a minute, but that's insane to have that happen right there. And to have those guys right there, I mean, know what to say. I mean, that whole QB room, but hey, there are some winners too from this as well. Say, for as far as winners go, you do have Detroit Lions running backs actually did all right in that game against Washington, looked pretty solid. I got to say Seattle for the reason that Drew Lock looked like a capable backup. And we've seen Drew Lock, and it's good for Seattle because Drew Lock's been in this position before with the Seahawks. Remember, he led the upset against the Eagles in 2023 on Monday Night Football when it exposed that the Eagles' previous 2 games against the Cowboys and 49ers were not just bad games, but it was a collapse. So the point is, Lock's been on the Seahawks roster before, and he's been made his way around the organization. So he knows the offense, and he knows a lot of the guys there. So his performance shows that he can be a capable backup if he needs to be called into action. Then winners right there. Yeah, John Mechie actually did pretty solid on the Panthers with 6 receptions, 77 yards. And considering that the Panthers have a lot of injuries in that wide receiver room, there's a possibility John Mechie could very well ends up being a guy that ends up actually getting some starting time for the Panthers come regular season, because it's not a lot of depth there. And there's some other guys that had some decent performances, like Joe Milton, a backup QB for the Cowboys, but we don't really know. Well, he's unlikely to get playing time unless Dak gets injured and they need him. But those are just some of the few winners. So also, I'd say Tanner McKee stood out. Will Shipley stood out to me for the Eagles. I said this, it's possible maybe the Eagles could trade Tank Bigsby, who's still their second string running back. And the only reason I say that is because they're not really utilizing him. It's possible that another team that thinks they could utilize Bigsby more in their offense might trade a mid-round pick to the Eagles for him. And that might mean a guy like Will Shipley might be slotted in as that number 2 back if something like that were to happen. So Shipley's performance in the preseason game against the Patriots in the first half gave me confidence that, hey, if this guy does end up becoming a number 2 back, or he gets more playing time, either because Saquon gets hurt and he's being utilized more behind Bigsby, that he could at least be reliable if needed. So there got a few winners there as well. But now, speaking of winners, and I put the emphasis on winners because we're talking about this news right here. I'll share it with you guys in 1 second. I'm going to get the IG banner up because I don't know if this is necessarily a win or not. You'll see what I'm talking about. Here we go. It's this news. The Cleveland Browns have announced that today Deshaun Watson will be the Week 1 starting quarterback. Oh, boy. And you would have said a few years ago it was going to be the Week 1 starter entering the 2022 season. This first year under, it would have looked like a huge win. But in the time period from 2022 to present, here it is. You've had 2022. He only played 6 games. Browns went 3-3. 2023, they did go 5-1 as a team, but ultimately Watson's performance was subpar, and he ends a season-ending shoulder injury. Remember, they signed Flacco off waivers and had that magical run to the playoffs. They were 1-6 in 2024 in 7 starts for the torn Achilles, and he didn't play at all last year. So, in hindsight, that's 19 games in 4 seasons as the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. Only 3 seasons because he didn't even play it all last year. And this is the guy now who's going to be the Week 1 starter. When you got Deshaun Watson, who in 4 seasons has only started 19 games combined in 4 seasons under roster, including 1 year he didn't play at all due to injury, that's not a good sign for the Browns at all. And really, we've seen how this rusty thing has worked for Deshaun Watson before. Because remember, he missed the entire 2021 season due to off-the-field issues, got suspended, served 11-game suspension, which is why he only started 6 games in 2022. So essentially, he missed 2 years of football. And you saw how that negatively affected his game as the QB of the Browns. He did not show the same flash and promise he showed with the Houston Texans. I mean, you saw maybe bits and moments here and there where Watson flashed brilliance, but it wasn't consistent. Deshaun Watson did not consistently deliver as the Browns starting quarterback. And in situations where they were winning games, they were winning games in spite of Watson for the most part when he was their starter. So you clearly saw that nearly 2 years away, the toll it took on Deshaun Watson. And not to mention, he hasn't played a full season for the Browns. If this is your guy who's your starting quarterback Week 1, you're in big trouble as an organization. And all my Eagles fans out there, I want to say, for those that want to complain about maybe the slight disappointments of Kevin Patullo and the disappointment of the 2023 season, would you rather be stuck in the Cleveland Browns shoes, or would you be happy with as the Philadelphia Eagles fan? I'm much happier as an Eagles fan. So, Eagles fans, let's just remember, it's even in seasons with late season collapses and defenses falling apart in the second half of Super Bowls, the things Eagles fans have complained about in recent years, trust me, it could be much worse. It could be the Browns, the Falcons, the Raiders, the Dolphins, etc. So just be happy that we got what we've gotten from the Eagles this decade, all right? Let's just be happy with that. But yeah, back to this point here. when you got Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, and Deshaun Watson, who's only played 19 games in 4 seasons, this being his 5th season with the Browns, you know you have a terrible QB room. And I don't see how Deshaun Watson, who was rusty when he first took over as the Browns QB because he practically missed 2 seasons, how now, after, again, practically missing 2 seasons, is going to play? How's he going to step in having only played 19 games in 4 seasons, coming off a major Achilles injury that took him out for basically a year and a half, and expect him to come back and be a star quarterback for the Browns? I don't see how that's going to happen. And if you wonder, well, how the hell is he still stuck on the Browns? Because nobody wants to take on his contract. The Browns went all in for him, but they obviously went all in for the wrong quarterback. And now this is karma coming to bite them, where in year 5, when it's clearly obvious he's not going to be the guy for the Browns, they're being forced to start him. That's a terrible sign for the organization right there. Now, for us as fans, it's comedy gold. Just to see this trio of a room right here. It's incredible. It's incredible. It's incredibly just comical and sad at the same time that this has happened. But without any further ado, though, I mean, yeah, the Browns, but let's face it, though, too. There's a good chance that the Cleveland Browns could possibly be forced to turn back to Shedeur during the season because either Watson gets hurt or he's absolutely abysmal, and Browns might just be scratching their heads saying, you know what? Watson, Shedeur may not be the best, but Watson's so bad, we got to give Shedeur a chance. I mean, it could get to that point for the Cleveland Browns. So just because Deshaun Watson's the week 1 starter doesn't mean he's going to retain that role throughout the season. There is a very good possibility, very good possibility that I'm telling you, Shedeur could take over as the starter. But with that being said, we're going to switch gears. Talk about NFL quarterbacks. I did tease this just a moment ago. I was going to rank NFL QB hot seats 1 to 5. What that is I'm going to rank each QB on how big their hot seat is as a starting quarterback from either a 1 to 5 scale. 1 being their job's pretty much safe, 5 being that everything could be on the line for them this season. So we're going to go division by division with the projected starting quarterback. Although we're going to make an exception for the Browns and go with 2 quarterbacks here. But without any further ado, let's dive into it. Start with my division, the NFC East. For the Philadelphia Eagles, for Jalen Hurts, to me, I'd say the hot seat at this point, regardless of what some fans want to say, regardless of all the haters that want to criticize Hurts and all the fans that forget real quickly, I'm going to say Jalen Hurts at most is a 2. 2 out of 5. Now, if he has another year where he's not that efficient, his throwing accuracy goes down a bit, and the offense doesn't look that good, yeah, the seat could heat up a little bit, and you could wonder, was Jalen Hurts just a short-term guy, or is he a long-term guy? But it's unlikely to happen because here's a guy who still has 2 Super Bowl starts and a Super Bowl win and a Super Bowl MVP, mind you, under his belt. I don't see it any more than a 2. The New York Giants, Jackson Dart, it's not so much him's play on the field, but what could be the big issue for him is staying healthy, his offensive line protecting him. So I'm going to say for that reason right there, I'm going to go with Jackson Dart about a 2.5, mainly because of health concerns is why I got him around that stage. Jaden Daniels for Washington, I kind of got him about the same, about a 2.5. There's not going to be a whole ton of pressure, but there's going to be the pressure to stay healthy for a season and put up actually, I'll go with 3 for him because of the injury concern, and there's going to be the pressure to live up to his rookie year. Because he had a phenomenal rookie year leading Washington the NFC Championship game, but now there's that thing back in people's minds of, okay, can he repeat upon his efforts? And is he going to come back after missing a majority of last season healthy and actually lead this team back into championship contention? So I got to say the pressure's on a little bit. Dak, I don't think the pressure's on for Dak this season. He's off an incredible year last year. I think the pressure's more so on the Cowboys defense than anything. But I will say this. I got to say 2.5, and here's why. Dak is in his 30s after all, and he's been in the NFL for over a decade now. This will be his 10th season coming up. He's had a few season-ending injuries, and they also haven't had much playoff success under Prescott either. So there's going to be that pressure of, okay, he's going to have to, there's some pressure to step up and have a good year and prove that he's still worthy of being the guy long term. So I do think a 2.5 for Dak because there's going to be some pressure there. Moving on to the NFC North. For Caleb Williams, I'll say he's more on a 2 scale because there's going to be some pressure from him to prove that last year wasn't a fluke. Maybe even become the first Chicago Bears quarterback in their franchise history to reach the 4,000-yard passing mark on a single season. So there is some pressure, but based off last year, there's not going to be a whole lot going into it. For Jared Goff, it's not so much on him, but it's more on the Lions as a team to stay healthy. And if they don't get 9 or more wins or make it back to the playoffs at the end of the year, you could be talking a little bit about needing to switch directions in the long term. I'll say Jared Goff, though, it's relatively safe. Maybe a 2 at most on a 2 to 5 scale. Jordan Love, I'm actually going to say of all the quarterbacks in the NFC North, he's going to have the most pressure because I'll say he's about 3.5 because he's been on the Packers roster now for three seasons. He's going to be in as a starter. He's going in his 4th season as a starter. And so far, Jordan Love hasn't followed through in living up to the success of the previous 2 quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre. So I think there's going to be some pressure right there for Jordan Love to go out there and actually prove that he can be the next franchise guy. Because so far he's proven, well, he's a game manager, but we don't know if he can be the long-term starter. Yeah, Jordan Love's a game manager, but we don't know if he's the long-term starter. So there's going to be that pressure there for Jordan Love to step up and have a good season, unlike past seasons. So I do see some pressure there, and I do think there's going to be some Jordan Love's going to have to prove that, yeah, he's not just a game manager. He's the next guy. It's not because of Matt LaFleur. It's not because of the team around him. He's actually that franchise guy. So he's going to have to step up this season. And the final one, I'm going to go Kyler Murray for the Vikings. He'd be on a 3. And the reason why, now there's not going to be as much pressure on him to succeed. You got a good running game in Minnesota. We've seen throughout the preseason with Murray in there. They have a run-first approach that takes some of the pressure off him. And he's got better talent around him. But Kyler Murray is going to have to prove that he can still be a starter long-term and prove that he deserves the benefit of the doubt for what happened in Arizona. If he can go to Minnesota, have a good season behind KOC, Kevin O'Connell, and redeem himself a bit, then yeah, there's room to say that Kyler Murray can still be a long-term starter, but he is going to have to prove it. For the NFC West, Sam Darnold, based on his overall body of work, there is some pressure to prove that he can actually be the long-term guy, that this isn't just a short-term flash-in-the-pan good run. So there's about but they're fresh off a Super Bowl win with Darnold as their QB. So I'd say about a 2.5 for them. Purdy for the Niners, not really that much pressure on Purdy. It's more so on Mike Shanahan and the training staff to keep that team healthy and actually get back into contention. For the 49ers, I would say for Purdy, it's not going to be a lot of pressure, about a 1 for him. So I don't see much pressure for him. For the Los Angeles Rams, Matthew Stafford, a 1. His hot seat is relatively low. He's fresh off an MVP season. He got an extension. Rams are the projected favorites to go to the Super Bowl in the NFC. I don't see any pressure on Matthew Stafford at all. Last but not least, for the Arizona Cardinals, for Carson Beck, I would say at most a 2, because let's face it, there isn't really much of a great team around him, and he's probably not going to get much playing time. He's probably going to be, say, he'll probably play about the first sit the first half of the season, sit a few games before he gets the start. So he'll get a few weeks to get adjusted before he's thrown out there. And considering he doesn't have a great team around him, he'll get some benefit of the doubt. So I don't think he's got a whole lot of pressure there. In the final division, NFC South. Starting with the Saints, Tyler Show. There's really, I'd say about a 2.5. Now, there is some concerns about whether or not he can actually be the guy long-term. And he's going to have to prove that he can actually be that guy for the Saints. But also, it's not a strong division this year. It's a winnable division for any of the 4 teams. So I don't think there's a whole lot of pressure on Show to excel with Kellen Moore there in year 2. I'd say for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield, say about a 2.5. When you look at Baker's work, he's shown he's a guy. He's shown that he can he fits in well with that system. He's been good with the Bucs, but he's going to have to show he can be more than just a good stat guy and a guy who can lead the Bucs to the playoffs. Mayfield's going to probably have to take it from, say, maybe a lower top 10 quarterback to proving he can be a superstar quarterback. So there's going to be some of that pressure on him. So I do think there's some there. For the Panthers, Bryce Young, I got to say about a 3 out of 5. I mean, he did improve in years 2 and 3 statistically, but fresh off winning the NFC South, some people are going to be asking the question, was it just a fluke? Was it just a one-year wonder deal where the Panthers made it to the playoffs? Are they going to go back to being a dumpster fire? Is Bryce Young going to get exposed? So I do think there's pressure on Bryce Young to actually prove that he belongs in the conversation of NFL caliber starting quarterback, and he's not just some solid game manager that can be plugged in the right situation. So there's going to be pressure on Bryce Young. And then last but not least, you're going to have for the NFC South for Tua, I got to say the hot seat's on. It's about a 5 at this point. Everyone's doubting him. They don't think he's got what it takes anymore. They think he's got his bell rung one too many times. A. B. He's put out some bad tape in preseason so far. So, yeah, he's going to have to prove that he's not damaged goods and he can still go as a starting quarterback. Like, pressure's on. If Tua doesn't excel this year, he's going to end up either having to retire, or if he gets his bell rung one more time, he's probably going to be forced to retire, or he's going to end up being relegated to a backup the remainder of his career with limited playing time. And for Michael Penix, even as a backup, I'd say the pressure's kind of hot. At a 4, I mean, he had several major injuries in college. There has been some red flags with his play so far. There was his rookie year for the games he did start compared to Kirk Cousins, who started most of the season. And last year he suffered another injury, missed some time. I don't know. I think there's a lot of pressure on Michael Penix. Now, switching divisions for the AFC East, will start the New England Patriots, defending conference champs. Drake May won. There's no pressure on him this year, although there might be a little bit from to prove that he's actually a really good quarterback. He's not surrounded by the right cast. There might be some pressure for Drake May to play better statistically, but there's no pressure in terms of his starting job. His starting job should be secured, barring a significant fall off or a Bledsoe-type situation where he goes down with an injury and the backup quarterback comes in. In this case, it would be Tommy DeVito and just lights the world on fire, which I don't see that happening twice in a lifetime. I think the Tom Brady thing was just a once-in-a-lifetime deal for a 6th-round pick to come in and just take over that way. But moving right along, yet the Miami Dolphins, Malik Willis, I'd say about a 3 because he's not surrounded by a great team. But remember, he's had a mixed bag so far. In Tennessee, he didn't play that great. In Green Bay, he was solid filling in for Jordan Love. But there's going to be that question now with Willis of, okay, did you just excel because you had good teammates around you during those few games with the Packers? Or are you actually an NFL caliber starting quarterback? And this season could be a prove it for Malik Willis. But there is some benefit of the doubt, too, because Willis doesn't surrounded by the best teammates. But there is going to be that question of, did Willis just go on a hot streak in Green Bay because he had a good system around him, or is he actually a starter? So there's going to be pressure on Malik Willis for the Dolphins there. For the Jets to Geno Smith, I'd say about a 1.5 because there's really no expectations. Geno Smith's just a temporary plug-in guy. So, I mean, then again, on the flip side, you could say it's about a 5. I don't know, but yeah, Geno Smith, the seats, but no, I would say a 5 because there's not much expectation. He's only a short-term guy. And then, last but not least, as far as that division goes, you got the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen. His hot seat's on a 1. His job's safe, barring a significant regression, which I don't see happening, or a series, which I don't see that happening there. He's a 1. You got the AFC West, or the AFC North. I'd say for the Pittsburgh Steelers, for Aaron Rodgers, it is his final season, most likely. They're probably going to let him play out the season, see what he does, maybe ride off into the sunset. But because of the possibility of injuries or insignificant, I'd say maybe a 2 due to possibility of injuries. But other than that, his seat isn't really hot. We know it's just a 1-season deal. He's just going to play it out, see what happens, and go from there, barring injuries. And then for the Cleveland Browns, for Deshaun Watson, his hot seat's at a 5. The reasons why, because he could get injured any moment or absolutely stink up the joint, and they could be forced to go back to Shedeur Sanders. Which also, on the other hand, I'm going to kind of cheat here and go 2 QBs for the Browns. Shedeur Sanders' hot seat. I'd say he's about a 4 right now because there's a lot of people that don't like him. A lot of NFL scouts that think he's just too brash and full of himself for being Deion Sanders' son, fair or not. And he's put out some bad tape with a lot of interceptions last year. So some teams aren't going to be patient with a guy like Shedeur, give him a chance. So if he ends up getting back the starting job and stinks up the joint, there could be a lot there. That could be the beginning of the end for Shedeur Sanders as being considered a potential serious quarterback for the future. And then for the Cincinnati Bengals, for Joe Burrow, I'd say, about a 1. There's no pressure. He's not on the hot seat necessarily. Now, the Bengals offensive back Taylor more so on the hot seat, but that's more on them. Burrow, it's more a 1. As long as he's healthy, he's going to play. Ravens, Lamar Jackson, he's a 1 on the hot seat. As long as he's healthy, he's going to play. I don't see that changing. For the AFC South, I got for Tennessee Titans, Cam Ward, the hot seat's about, say, a 3 right now. To be fair, he's only in his second season. He doesn't have a lot of help around him, so he gets some benefit of the doubt. But at the same time, Cam Ward's got to at least show some improvement from what he did last year and show that he's at least worth giving a 3rd season to. So there's going to be that pressure there, but I don't expect a whole lot of pressure on him. So I'll give him a 3 for that. Jacksonville Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence, I'd say at best a 2. He's going to have the starting job. He's coming off a good season, but there's going to be that pressure to prove that it wasn't just a one-off, or he's not a streaky quarterback or a mid-tier quarterback. He's going to have to prove that he can consistently deliver, similar to what he did last year under Coach Cohen. So there will be a little bit of pressure, but not a whole lot. The Indianapolis Colts, Daniel Jones, I got to say it's out of 4 right now. He's got to be able to stay healthy and prove that his performance last year prior to the injuries wasn't a fluke. Plus, he already flamed out as a bust for the Giants, so that's going to add to it. I got to say it's about a 4 right now for Daniel Jones to prove last year wasn't a fluke and that he can actually be the guy for the Colts going forward. And actually, CJ Stroud of the Houston Texans, you would look at his first 3 years, you look at the Texans' record and would think, got to be low pressure, right? But when you actually see his performance, you see year 1, 2023, they made it to the playoffs primarily because of Stroud. Year 2, they had a better roster. They still won the division, but Stroud took a step back. He was subpar. Year 3 wasn't that good. The team around him was really strong, and it all came to bite him in the playoffs when Stroud disappointed. So I'd say the pressure on him is about a 4 because he's got all the help around him. He's got receivers, he's got a running back, he's got a good coach, got a good team. You got to step up and prove that you can lead this team. Otherwise, the Texans might start thinking of replacement options for you. And the last division for this right here, we're going to go with the AFC West. Denver Broncos, Bo Nix, about a 1. He should be safe. Although Bo Nix, they remember 1.5. There's some pressure to prove that he can actually still be the guy going forward, but not a lot. Mahomes, a 1. Justin Herbert, I'd say a 1. His job's relatively safe, but there is going to be that, I'd say 1. Actually, Sir Herbert, maybe there is a little bit, say a 2, to actually show that he can get the job done in big games and win those games, that he's not just a lower top 10 quarterback. So I think there is some pressure there. And for the Raiders, for Fernando Mendoza, about a 2.5, because he's going to have to come in and prove that, hey, he could potentially be the guy going forward to turn this dumpster fire Raiders franchise around. But also because it's his rookie year, you got a first-year head coach, Clint Kubiak, got a lot of new pieces. It's not that hot, but he's going to have to at least show something. He doesn't necessarily have to win more games than he loses. He doesn't have to play great, but he's got to at least show some flashes of potential. So there is going to be a little bit of pressure on Fernando Mendoza. So with that being said, guys, take a quick break. Your boy will be right back. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the NBA because there were a few signings and there was a small level trade that happened that we're going to discuss. So stay tuned. Your boy will be right back. We'll discuss that. All right, Steez Nation, after a quick break, your boy's back. Now, we're going to have some NBA to dive into, but before we get into that, there is one more piece of news I want to talk about. So Hassan Reddick, the linebacker from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, is on the trade market yet again. It feels like Groundhog's Day here in the story over again. You remember, he was with the Philadelphia Eagles for 2022 and 23 seasons. He had an excellent season. He was the lead pass rusher in both seasons. But then in the 2024 offseason, Reddick wanted a trade. He requested the trade. He got his wish to trade to the Jets. He only played a handful of games for them when he was finally forced to step in and play after trying to hold out there too. He went to the Buccaneers. He played about 11 games. He did all right for them, and now he wants out again. But now we're seeing a pattern develop with Hassan Reddick. It seems like every team he plays for, he requests out. He did it with the Eagles. But remember, he was with the Cardinals early on. He was one of the few bright spots of that 3-13 2018 season for them with Steve Wilkes. But then after a few seasons there, he goes to the Panthers for about a year. Then he goes to the Eagles, does really good, but then he ends up on the move again. And now that you think about it, you see all this Hassan Reddick being on the trade market, always wanting to move on. Now we see why he switched roster to roster. It's just ridiculous. It really is. It's just incredible. I mean, here's a guy with a ton of talent who could easily be one of the best at his position if he just fully committed to an environment. I mean, I don't know what the problem is with Reddick, if he doesn't like to stay in a certain place long, or he just likes to change scenery a lot. Is that part of the deal why Hassan Reddick's always on the market move, or he's always requesting trades? He doesn't feel comfortable staying at the same scenery for a long time. Sometimes that happens too, because you get those people sometimes too who don't stay at jobs for a long time, maybe at best a year and a half, 2 years most, before they bounce and move somewhere else. Sometimes you get that, those people that they need to change the scenery. And maybe Hassan Reddick, that's the way his mind is wired, where he just feels like after a few years with a team, he just wants a fresh start with a new locker room. But here's the thing. With that mentality of always wanting out, that lowers his trade value and his marketability and his appeal to NFL scouts, because they think, okay, here's a guy who has some talent, but he's not going to want to be here for long. I don't want to take him time, invest a lot of time and money into a guy who might be here a year at most at this point, because Hassan Reddick's starting to get to that point where he's bouncing around from team to team, and he might be bouncing off the Buccaneers somewhere else soon. I just don't. So that can where he's his own worst enemy, constantly changing teams, changing environments. And for the rumors about him returning to the Philadelphia Eagles, look, I understand. In those 2 years in an Eagles uniform, he was excellent. He was a sack machine for us. He got over double-digit sack seasons, 2022 and 2023. So I get it in that regards. But to the Eagles fans, I got to say, remember, this is a guy who requested out last time, who didn't want to play here and wanted a fresh start. He got that fresh start and at the Jets, and then he wanted to go somewhere else. And now with the Bucs, looks like he's on the outs. He wants to go somewhere else. So it's like, here's a guy who keeps changing teams and changing environments. I don't see why this is a guy you would want to continue. I just don't see why this is a guy you'd want to keep bringing back. You'd want to bring back knowing he might be gone in a year. He might decide like, nah, I don't want to be on the Eagles anymore. He might decide he just wants to do he might want to be happy to return to the Eagles at first, might miss it, and then after a season might want to bounce or might start showing signs at the end of the season. Why bring in a guy like this? We saw how the A.J. Brown drama from last year had an impact on the locker room's morale and its chemistry. Why do you want to do this again? Like, I got to say no to that right there. We already had enough trouble last year. Last thing you want is a guy like Hassan Reddick who is inconsistent and can't make up his mind. While his talent on the field might be promising, I wouldn't want him back for that reason right there. So I'm going to have to say no to Sonbrek. And plus, we already got a really good defense, too. We still got Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Jahad Campbell showing some flashes. You still got Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. We have a talented defense around us, folks. We don't necessarily. I'm not in a hurry. I wouldn't be in a hurry to bring him in at all. I would not. I'll have to pass on that. But while we're on that subject, what that's all I got to say right there. Moving right along, we're on the subject of Philadelphia. Do want to say, as yesterday was the birthday of the late great Kobe Bryant, who was initially born and raised throughout Philadelphia, attended Lower Merion High School, played his 21 seasons in the NBA with the Los Angeles Lakers. Say happy belated heavenly birthday to the late great Kobe Bryant, 18-time All-Star, 5-time champion, multi-time finals MVP, regular season MVP, and all the great accolades that came along. Still an influence to this day. A lot of people still embrace the Mamba mindset. You still have the Mamba Academy Basketball Association. People still revere Kobe to this day. So happy belated heavenly birthday to one of the most influential athletes of the 21st century, not just in the United States, but globally. So again, happy birthday. Rest in peace, Kobe Bean Bryant. Thank you for your influence on the game. And we will certainly remember you for years to come. But now moving on to some actual NBA news, because we actually have some NBA news to talk about here. I know it's rare that in late August we got some NBA news, but we do. First, we have the Miami Heat, a team who we had some concerns about the bench. A lot of people wanted to crown them default winners of the Giannis trade, but one of my things was, wait a minute, but what about the Miami Heat's bench? Well, Klay Thompson has now signed with the Miami Heat. So the Miami Heat now bring in a veteran alongside Bam Adebayo, Giannis Antetokounmpo to at least have a name on the team. But when I think about it, Klay Thompson at this stage in 2026, after a disappointing tenure with the Dallas Mavericks, I'm shocked the Miami Heat, knowing Pat Riley's always been a, what have you done for me lately? What have you done recently? Not what have you done in the past type of guy. I'm surprised they're bringing in Klay Thompson. I'm surprised because Pat Riley has always had this mentality. That's why the Heat traded Shaq when he was slowing down. That's why they traded Jimmy Butler, because they felt like there was problems going on in the locker room. That's why they didn't give Dwayne Wade a big contract near the end of his career in the 2016 free agency. And now they're bringing in a guy in Klay Thompson who would have been a great addition to Miami 5 years ago in 2026. It makes you wonder the fact this all of a sudden, this sudden, is this, what do you even call it, a change of heart or just change in approach? Makes you wonder, were the Miami Heat just so desperate for a bench guy? It must be. They must be real desperate for some help on the bench. They must be looking around their roster being like, oh, snap, we gave up so many guys. Kel Elware, Tyler Hero. Who do we have coming off the bench? LeBron didn't rejoin us. So I guess they settled on Klay Thompson, who's still a decent player, but he doesn't necessarily move the needle for this team. You're still going to have to heavily rely on Giannis and Bam staying healthy, because 11 points last season for Klay Thompson. This is not the Klay Thompson we remember from the Splash Brothers duo in Golden State that won 4 championships. Like I said, 2020, 21, or even 22, this would have been an excellent addition. This would have been something for Warriors fans to legit be excited about. But in 2020, or Heat fans to be excited about, but in 2026, it's just, I mean, it doesn't move the needle necessarily. You still have a lot of holes on that bench right there for Miami. So yes, Klay Thompson, maybe he'll still maybe occasionally have a good game. He'll just drop some threes from time to time. Now, if the Miami Heat still had Kel Elware, Tyler Hero, along with Giannis, Bam, and then they brought in Klay Thompson as a bench guy, then this would have been an excellent pickup. But when you don't really have many bench guys to work with, this does not move the needle at all for them. So there's that right there. And there is another guy I wanted to talk about that I didn't get the chance to mention too. It's better late than never, but it's that former NBA MVP, multi-time All-Star, former multi-time scoring champion, triple-double man, one of the great point guards of all time, Mr. Russell Westbrook himself, has retired. Now, the key question is, what will Russell's legacy be? For me, he's one of the most exciting individual players. He's one of the best point guards of his time. He's a future Hall of Famer, but he's also he's one of the best guards to never win a championship. That's what Russell Westbrook is to me. One of the best 21st century guards, an exciting player, but a guy who ultimately at times let his own ego and his mentality get in his way. And that's one of the factors that stopped him from winning a championship. There was a lot, because you saw toward the end of career, you saw the more selfish and self-centered side of Russell Westbrook sometimes take over in the way he went about handling things. Even when he was still playing at a top-tier level, like even on the Wizards, Russell Westbrook was actually underrated on the Wizards. Like that one season he was there alongside Bradley Beal when they made the 8th seed. Granted, they ended up getting destroyed by my Sixers in the playoffs, but Russell Westbrook actually did pretty good in a Wizards uniform, considering that they were a relatively bad team and he helped carry them to the 8th seed. He did do pretty solid in that situation. And remember, with the OKC Thunder, he was the number 2 guy behind Kevin Durant. He played a key role in them being contenders in the early 2010s. So Russell Westbrook did have a lot of good, and he became basically the king of triple doubles. And you can say, oh, well, that's because it's a stat-friendly era, and that's partially true, but it does take some individual talent to be able to become a king of triple doubles, regardless of what era you play, and you got to give him that. But at the same, we can talk, so there's a lot of good from his legacy. He will be one of the best guards to never win a championship. That's what it'll go down as. But also we can learn from his attitude a bit. He sometimes had a habit of being very selfish, not especially with the stint with the Lakers. He didn't want to accept the fact that he was declining as a player. He was still trying to be an alpha when he was more of a role player at that point. So there was some of that ego that came in play that we can learn from too. So there's some of the good and the bad from Russell Westbrook. But ultimately, man, yeah, is he a Hall of Famer? Yes. Like the guy or not, he is. So Russell Westbrook's now retired. He had one of the best guards of the 21st century alongside Chris Paul, Jason Kidd, and Steph Curry, and even Allen Iverson and Kobe Bryant. Well, if you're going to just go guards 1 and 2, point guard and shooting guard, of course you got to go guys like Kobe, Steph Curry, Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook, Allen Iverson is some of the best, and Jason Kidd amongst the best guards, both point and shooting guard of the 21st century. So Russell Westbrook's up there amongst best guards of the 21st century. Even low-key, this guy who just re-signed with the Cleveland Cavaliers, Mr. James Harden, on a 3-year deal. I mean, look, I get it. James Harden, come regular season time, James Harden can still ball. He can still hoop. I remember last year before he got traded to the Cavs, when he was with the Clippers, he was one of the bright spots of that team in the earlier regular season. So I give James Harden this. He can still shoot, he can still hoop, and he's still a really good regular season player. But what has always been the consistent theme throughout James Harden's career? He'll play good during the regular season, but come playoff time, when you need him to step up, he's not there for you. He had the same problem in Houston consistently. You remember 2018, yes, Chris Paul did get hurt, but James Harden also delivered an egg in that final game against the Warriors as well. So it's not solely Chris Paul's injury's fault. Remember Game 7 for the Sixers, his final game in a Sixer uniform against Boston in 2022. He laid an egg of only 9 points. He was inefficient in the series against the Knicks, so that's the thing with James Harden, man. Phenomenal regular season player, but a guy who hasn't been able to get it done come playoff time. And I'll give him the benefit of the doubt for the Nets injury. That was out of his control, but there is a history of him disappearing come playoff time in terms of bringing his best game. So it's like, yeah, with James Harden, you'll be getting a veteran that can score, but for the Cavs, you've been with Donovan Mitchell recent years. You've been in that spot of strong regular seasons, but not the guy who can help lead you come playoff time. And bringing in James Harden, who is the king, the 2010s king of playoff inefficiency, I'm sorry, it's not going to help you win a championship, especially when you have the Sixers got stronger. The Knicks are still going to be in the mix. I don't see that working out for the Cavs right there. Now, I get some of James Harden's potential upside, but if you're trying to compete for a championship, why are you bringing him back for a few more years? To me, I just don't get that move. To me, yeah, he's almost like he's like a shooting guard Karl Malone, if you will, in that regards of a guy you can't rely on come playoff time. So, yeah, there's that. And plus the last deal, Max Strus was dealt in a 3-team deal to the Clippers. So that will give the rebuilding Los Angeles Clippers some depth, which is nice there. Now, Strus, he might get some more shooting time with the Clippers. Maybe he stands out, has a really good season. Maybe he could break out as a star of his own. But I don't think, even if Max Strus plays really good individually, this moves the needle for the Clippers. But the official trade details are as follows. I'm going to share the screen with you guys in just a second. You got Clippers acquire Max Strus from the Cavs. Cavs get Peyton Watson, sign and trade from Denver, and Cam Whitmore. The Nuggets get an unprotected 2031 first-round pick from the Cavs, 2032 second-round pick from Sacramento via Cleveland, plus Julian Reese. So just some picks and depth piece swaps. But Strus, like I said, maybe he individually can excel, but I just don't see that necessarily translating to a big win for the Clippers and moving the needle in their rebuild. So that's really all I got to say for you guys right here. That's pretty much it for the show today. So guys, thanks for tuning in. Thanks to Agent Warrior X, my co-host on Everything on the Table, for tuning in. Now, unfortunately, tomorrow he's got to work the Yankees game, so we're not going to do Everything on the Table tomorrow, but we will be back. Everything on the Table, me and Agent Warrior X, for episode number 23 on September 1st, 2026. First day of September. Steez, Agent Warrior will be live for Everything on the Table. We'll recap Anime NYC, talk about the NFL 53-man rosters. We'll talk a little bit about the MLB and some of the recent NBA moves as well on that show. That'll be September 1st, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with me and Agent Warrior X. So make sure to tune into that. So before we go, a few quick shout-outs. Shout out to everyone that tuned in, Agent Warrior X, everyone else. If you haven't done so yet, please do me a favor, drop a like. If you haven't done so on whichever platform you're watching this, whether it be the Hardcore Sports Network or the Nikki Steez channel, got the links to both in the chat. So if you only sub to one or sub to neither, make sure you sub up both of them for more content. And yeah, man, but as far as, hey, we still got to wait and see what's going to happen. The Eagles in the preseason finale. We'll check out that right there. And as far as the Hardcore Sports Network goes, for those of you wondering what content we got coming up, we do have the usual. If you're a Phillies fan, we have This Week in Phillies Baseball that's streamed on the network about an hour before I went on. So if you're a Phillies fan, you can check that out. Also, we got live on the network. If you are a WWE fan, there will be the Monday Night Raw watch along tonight. You can check that out as well. I'm going to share some of you guys, some of the streams we got going for this week. You see right there, we're live. You got SFW, HSN, and Pyro present the Raw watch along. You got Birds of Broad Street coming up in a little bit, where the guys will be talking about the Eagles, talking about the recapping the Patriots, talking about the Bengals. Courtside View and the W are the links. The best team to beat scheduled for tomorrow, 7 p.m. Coach Ed Gladney, who covers the WNBA, will do that. For the Yankees, live play-by-play with the ugly truth. If you're Yankees fans, check out basketball fans, 5:30 p.m. Wednesday, Pick and Roll Podcast, episode 186 with Mitch, Coach Ed Gladney, Rios from Just Fans Podcast, and Blaze Radio. They'll be talking about the Klay Thompson signing and some more other fun subjects, basketball related, 5:30 p.m. on Wednesday. Excellent podcast. Check them out. NFC, Real Deal NFC East Roundup. You'll have different fan bases, different teams from the division, having a fun little discussion with Mac the Giants fan being the headliner for that show. If you're a New York fan, you got the Mets, Yankees, Nets take center stage, the Borough Breakdown Friday. And then you got the Weekend Wake Up with Mitch and Philly Halftime at 10:30 this Saturday, talking about spot news and sports. Philly sports, a truth about Philly sports. Rick's Rants, 10 p.m., kicking it off Saturday. And then for the wrestling fans, get the NXT Heatwave doubleheader. And then you got the 53-man roster reactions scheduled for August 30th at 6:05. So you guys can definitely check that out. So, and then as we just said, everything on the table September 1st. Oh, wait, I changed that to 8 p.m., not 8:30 p.m., episode 23. So, guys, thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this show. If you call part of it, the whole bit, or if you want to skim back and catch the parts you missed, I appreciate your support. So, guys, have a great rest of your night. Until next time, it's your boy Nicky Stees signing off. We'll catch y'all next week. Peace. Back, episode 72, same time, 5:30 Monday.